Hello and welcome to the hearing. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And without any further ado, on to this week's album, which is from 1993, The Juliet Letters by Elvis Costello and the Brodsky Quartet. Declan McManus, better known by his stage name Elvis Costello, is an English singer-songwriter whose career has spanned nearly 5 decades. Yes, it's getting to that point now.
Wow.
And produced 25 solo albums and 11 collaborative albums. He's almost approaching Zappa territory. The Juliet Letters is one of those collaborative albums. It's Costello's 14th studio album, and it's a collaboration with British string quartet, the Brodsky Quartet. All 5 musicians contributed to the writing of the music and the lyrics on this album. So the string quartet even contributed to the lyrics. And each song was conceived as an imaginary letter being sent to an imaginary recipient, Juliet Capulet. For the few people who I'm sad to say I probably have to explain this to, Juliet Capulet is the Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. You know, there are people out there who don't know the last name.
Uh, you know, she was kind of like Cher Madonna. She just, did
Yeah,
the
the
first
one
name.
name thing.
Yeah.
The album was released on January 19th, 1993 by Warner Brothers Records, produced by Elvis Costello, the Brodsky Quartet, and Kevin Killen, and features Elvis Costello on vocals, Ian Belton on violin, Michael Thomas on violin, Paul Cassidy on viola, and Jacqueline Thomas on cello. Reminder, I don't edit any songs into our episodes for copyright reasons, but down in the description and on YouTube, in the description on YouTube and on our blog at johnandscotto.com, you'll find the links to the Juliet Letters on Spotify, so you can follow along if you'd like. I could not find the entire album on YouTube, which is a
Are
first
you
for this
there?
show.
Oh, there you go.
On to track 1, Get Comfy. This is going to take a while. There are 20 tracks. On to track 1, Deliver Us. This is just an instrumental prelude to the album. I'm going to go ahead right now because I can't really tell viola from violin by hearing. I'm going to assume the viola is on the right with the cello. A viola is slightly larger than a violin, so and that one sounds a little deeper, so I'm going to guess that's the viola. It's really nicely moody, and it feels like literally setting a stage. Like
Well,
listening to it, I can see stuff being put in place.
normally this is some sort of overture where you get like a hint of or the beginning of the theme,
Mm.
uh, but they really don't have a
Well, it's
solid theme
it's a
that they
prelude.
return to in this, do they? Yeah. Well,
It's just
usually in this section you get the
yeah.
overture.
Well, do you either get an overture or a prelude? Prelude is just a short piece that kind of sets the mood and brings you in.
Ah, okay.
Like Fox had a prelude. The Fox album had a prelude. This has a prelude. An overture is what you're talking about, where it gives you little
Yeah.
samples of all of the music. And, kind of gives you a taste of what's to come. This is a
I
prelude.
think with what they were trying to do, you kind of expect an overture, in it. But I guess they don't really have a theme that they come
No.
back
I mean, there's 20
to
tracks and
really.
they're all different.
Yeah, well, mostly.
Well, I mean, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
On to track 2 for Other Eyes. Love how it starts nice and soft with just cello and vocals, and how subtly the viola fades in. Love the vocal melody. The pizzicato violin is a nice touch. There's a reference to the dentist's receptionist, which kind of threw me. And then I listened to that line again, and apparently she thinks that's who he cheated with. She found a number in his pocket.
Oh,
And it's just got some really nice tension between Costello and the quartet. Um, Divorce and like a failed marriage is kind of the theme of the album.
yeah. I was trying to get at what he was really going for and why Juliet is brought into
Well,
this.
that's mentioned in a lyric I'll quote later, much later.
Yeah.
On to track 3, Swine. This has a nice playful opening, then it gets very sinister. I love the 6/8 groove just before the vocal comes in. For some reason, he's doing like this fake New York accent. Don't quite understand that, but it's wonderfully abrupt and very angry. Um, I need to listen to more string quartets.
Uh,
This is not
this one,
something that's normally in my repertoire, as a listener. but it's really nice sound.
I mean, I think this one would be probably one of the more stronger tracks on the
Mm.
album. It may be one of my favorites. It's been tough to pick which
Hmm.
one on here.
Well, that's the thing with this album because I love the first, I'll say third of it.
Yeah.
Then somewhere between the midpoint and between 10 and 15, somewhere in there, I start getting bored.
Well, I mean, the real crime in this album, and it's a victim really of its time.
Mm.
It's that early 90s, and they people
CDs.
were recording to CDs,
Yeah.
exactly. Just because you can record up to 70 minutes doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. Yeah. If this had been edited down, it would be a fucking masterpiece.
I agree entirely. Uh, this, if this were just like a standard 45
Hmm.
minute album from back in the day, this would probably have blown minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when you sprawl it out over an hour,
It's
it starts
it's
glazing over after a while.
and we'll get to more of this once we get to like and for me track
Yes.
14. But I this one has a really nice sudden stop. Just this aggressive, insane song. I enjoyed it.
Now I saw he insisted he wasn't out to do a rock opera.
Yes,
Yet this
I
there's a
don't
lot
know if
of
it's not exactly an opera. It could be. It's arguably a concept album. It's not an
right.
opera because it doesn't tell a straight story.
True,
An
but
opera
he
tells a
was
story.
insisting he wasn't going for that. But yet, you get a lot of things here that are reminiscent of
Yeah,
Tommy. I mean,
yeah. It's. I think it's fair to call it a concept album.
yeah,
On to track 4, Expert Rights. Just a really pretty ballad. I love the delayed reaction in the quartet where you kind of get this kind of staggered effect in your ears if you're listening with headphones.
yeah.
Um, Great vocal. This is where I realized I should have listened to the rest of the album before now. I heard one song, the single, Jackson's Monk and Row, back in 93 in the OCC radio station. Liam played it.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it. I played it on all of my shows. I eventually walked with the disc.
Really? Then you never listened to it?
I, for some reason, never listened to the rest of the album. Just that one song. Never got
I
around
mean,
to it till today.
everything I stole, I listened to.
Yeah, most of the stuff I stole, I didn't. I have CDs I stole that still haven't listened to this day, 25
Wow.
years later.
Wow.
Um,
Now, I mean, the thing is, the melody feels like we've heard it already. We're only on track 4, and I'm already kind of getting bored of like the musical aspect of the album. However, his voice here
mhm.
is just, I mean, just fucking soars. And
This
he
is
does use it a few points in that where I didn't know he could even sing like that.
this is both a triumph, and the album as a whole, I'm talking about, a triumph and a victim of Costello's ego,
Yeah,
because the I think the large part of the reason he wanted to work with a quartet is it really does show off his voice,
right.
where a rock band doesn't. His usual style doesn't show off his voice. This album does a beautiful job of showing off what a good singer he is. I'll say good, not quite great. But it's also a victim of his, ego because 20 tracks and a lot of self-indulgence.
Yeah, that is the word that sums it up in the end, is self-indulgent.
On to track 5, Dead Letter. This is another instrumental. Flows perfectly from the last track. Just slow and pretty and moody. The first violin melody is heartbreaking. And then the second violin comes in with this wonderfully tense dissonance. And then it kind of comes to a stop and then comes back, which was interesting. At this point, and I will probably live to regret this. At this point, I not regret it, but I will eat my words. At this point, I was saying this album is in my top 5 of the year
Oh,
already,
really?
and then it went on and on and on. So I don't know how that's going to shake out. Track 6, I almost had a weakness. This is my favorite. Love the opening violin part. It's very Gershwin.
Yeah, it's very Broadway. there's a lot of this album where he feels like he's it's either Cats or I'm trying to remember
There's a lot
some
of
of the other
Gershwin.
musicals.
There's a lot of American in Paris, Gershwin kind of playful stuff. But I love the bitter lyrics, a groove in the first verse. It's triplets to a duple count, which is a really nice kind of off kilter sound. And then it slows down for the solos. I like that rhythm. And then it gets kind of really faster and chaotic during the solos. It slows and then gets faster. I love the line, "When I die, the cats and dogs will jump up and down, and you little swines will get nothing."
Again, using the word swine, huh?
Yeah, referencing the previous song.
Yeah.
And then it ends wonderfully chaotically. On to track 7, "Why," not a Robert Plant cover. Actually, the Robert Plant song came out, I think, no, it was before this. It was 80s, but no, not a cover. It's a Now and Zen song that I actually kind of like. Anyway, this is a slow, heartbreaking dirge about a child questioning their parents' distance and in some cases absence in the midst of a divorce. And it's very short and heartbreaking and beautiful.
Right. Just as it's kind of getting in there, you're just like, wait, what? That was it?
Yeah. On to track 8, "Who Do You Think You Are?" Love how the stereo spread is played with by the staggering of the arrangements and who comes in when. This is an album you need to listen to with headphones.
Yeah.
Love the triple rhythm in the verse. Nice playful Gershwin-esque chorus. "I'm the red-faced gentleman caught in this picture postcard." The line struck me as very Ian Anderson.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And I just love how it gets slow and sparse, and I kind of had chills at the end of this one. I
Yeah,
really loved it.
I think this has the bones of a really good song. I mean, maybe sell the chorus a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Like there didn't seem to be much differentiation between verse and chorus, but
Except for the band, the quartet. The arrangement changed, but yeah, the he could have sold it more. He could have
yeah,
sold a lot more. And I
yeah,
think I hadn't thought of this, but hearing you say that, I realized one thing. Costello normally on his rock stuff is a great actor.
right.
He's trying to sound pretty on this one, and his acting is really suffering.
You know, that hits it. That does it. That's exactly what's going on here. I'm kind of like, I always like Elvis Costello. Why am I left kind of flat on a lot of this?
He's not acting. He's trying to sound pretty.
Yeah,
Except for stuff like Swine and another one we'll get to in a minute.
yeah.
On to track 9, "Taking My Life in My Hands." Love the rhythm, little kind of rhythmic difference between the vocal and the quartet. They're just slightly off. Nice kind of off kilter feel. It's very moody, has some almost painfully intense harmony. Gets, I would almost say, demonic at points. Love how it gets prettier in the chorus, but still moody. And then in verse 2, it gets calmer, but is still moody. No notes on the lyrics for this one.
Just, I think just beautiful singing on this
Yeah.
one. I mean, his voice really does soar.
Track 10, "This Offer Is Unrepeatable." Super fucking theatrical on this one.
Master of the house.
And almost using the same accent as he uses on Swine.
Or it's quadrophenia. I don't know. There was a few.
And it's just, I think it's about a mail order scam.
Oh yeah.
Or it's maybe the devil trying to buy your soul. I can't be told. It can't be sure. It's like, "Send no money now. This offer is
Predates the
unrepeatable."
Nigerian prince by
Yeah,
about
it's that sort of
4
thing.
years, actually.
And it gets nicely chaotic, but it's just very Broadway, and it's my pick for weakest.
It's amusing at first, but after the third repetition, I asked to make it stop, which is also the theme of this album, actually.
Yeah, we're getting to that point for me. In a few more songs.
Yeah.
On to track 11, Dear Sweet Filthy World." Love that title. Very somber. The B section is very reminiscent of Vivaldi. He kind of borrowed from the Four Seasons a little bit. The lyrics are very dark. "Life is dark and cold as the sea." And there's references might be to suicide or to killing someone.
Hmm. I like the closing of it. I thought the earlier sections just kind of meander a bit, though.
Mm. On to track 12, The Letter Home. This is again a nice transition into this one, also very somber. Love how the viola and the cello drag. Now, we've talked about Gershwin and Broadway and that sort of thing a lot. This was one, to me, sounds very Beatles.
It's kind of a dirgy show tune, I think.
I hear a lot of like the Beatles Mellotron stuff in here.
Hmm.
I mean, Elvis Costello is very Beatles influenced, of course.
Well, of course, he even worked with McCartney in the
Yeah,
late
yeah.
80s.
Love the rhythmic
Like right
interplay in
before
the
this,
second chorus.
actually.
Yeah, actually, it's true.
Yeah.
And that all of that kind of string mellotron stuff, it was more Paul's side of things. It was the sort of prettier thing that he did. So
Yeah.
it rubbed off on him clearly. On to track 13. This is the only song I knew going in. Jackson's Monk and Row. Nice reference to "I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair" on the violin at the beginning. Only those of us who grew up on Looney Tunes would catch it.
I you know what? I don't think I really caught that. I
It's this
heard
melody that Bug sang all the time.
that Dolly Parton song. Was it "Here She Comes Again"?
I don't know that one. Okay. Like the riff, and this is a classic Elvis Costello vocal. He's not trying to sound pretty on this one.
Yeah, and I think I'd pick this as my strongest.
It's probably
I
a
now
close second for me.
understand why we're doing this. That has been the question I've been wondering. Like, I'm usually the one like, let's do the experimental album, the different album, and you finally go along and do it for this. And I'm like, why the fuck are we doing the experimental different album?
I know this. I knew this song.
That makes sense now. Because yeah, if this were the only song I'd heard, this it's "Here You Come Again" is the Dolly Parton
Okay.
song
I don't think I've heard
that
that one.
they're practically playing it on the
Uh-huh.
on the quartet. But yeah, that answers that question
Yeah.
for me now. I don't blame you now. If this was the only song I heard off the album, I'm like, fuck, let's see what else they do, because this sounds
And I had to follow Tom Waits. I figured Elvis Costello and a string quartet was
right, right.
going to do the job.
Like this sounds, I mean, they're really there's like this groove, there's this rhythm to it. Elvis Costello's doing his thing here.
Hmm.
This is like a real Elvis Costello song.
Yeah.
And yeah, the rest of the album's not like this.
On to track 14, This Sad Burlesque. It's a pretty sad ballad. I mean, pretty and sad. A nice soft vocal, great contrast from the last track. This is where I started to get bored.
Yeah, this one might be my weakest actually. It's like was it Save the Best for Last song?
Uh-huh.
I can't remember which R&B artist did it, and I think it was pretty close to this time, and it's just more dirgy show tune.
And I don't
And
want to
by
draw a
this,
comparison between the albums per se, but this is another case where if I had a bottle in front of me and it was on in the background, I wouldn't care.
if I had a frontal lobotomy, no,
If I was sitting here, just with it on, drinking with it on in the background, I'd enjoy it.
it's
It wouldn't get
Vanessa
old.
Williams. Vanessa Williams. Yeah, if I ever throw a fancy dinner party, this is what I imagine what I'd put on.
Yeah. If you're not paying attention to it, it's fine.
Odds are I'm never gonna throw a fancy dinner party,
Right.
however.
On to
I mean,
track
I'll
15.
throw a dinner party, but it's probably not gonna be
No,
fancy.
it's not really your thing.
No.
On to track 15, Romeo's Seance. So we do bring Romeo into it. He died.
Yeah.
Apparently the storyline was changed. But actually, I'm assuming Juliet was still alive in this universe, but no, the next song establishes that. Um, uh, Coming up with comments was getting challenging at this point for me.
Well, he really said he wasn't writing a rock opera.
Yeah.
I mean, this was probably his best attempt at a show tune, I think, on the
Mhm.
album. Like, there are so many attempts at show tunes here. This would probably be his best Broadway
Yeah,
show, which I
it's
think
got
is
this,
really what he was
playful,
going for here.
jumpy timing after this slow intro. Love again pizzicato violin. I love pizzicato violin. So anytime that comes in, I'm happy. Um, the only vocal harmonies on the album are on this song. It's all Elvis, of
Oh,
course.
okay. Yeah.
Love
Oh, I
the
thought there were no
staccato viola.
overdubs.
Hmm?
I thought there were no overdubs, but
Okay. There are vocal harmonies, and he's the only one credited with singing.
hmm.
So unless there are other uncredited vocalists, or then maybe, or there are overdubs. It's one of the two, and the harmonies sound like him. You can always tell when someone's harmonizing with themselves.
Oh, maybe they're just using our harmonizer live.
They could have done that, yeah, possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to track 16. I thought I'd rate to Juliet. Kind of on the nose with the concept on this one. Nice,
Yeah.
slow, moody opening. The line I have quoted that explains a lot. I thought I'd write to Juliet, for she would understand, and when someone is already dead, they can no longer let you down. So the idea is he's writing these letters to a corpse.
And I feel like at
And
least this one goes somewhere, but it's very rock opera.
yeah, the quartet gets kind of ethereal and eerie at the same time, almost
Yeah.
downright scary at points, which I kind of enjoyed.
Actually, I have "Good morning, worm, your honor."
Yeah, it gets very Elfman.
No, I was thinking Pink Floyd,
Oh yeah,
the trial from
right,
the
right,
wall.
right, right. There's a short instrumental break that sounds like an old movie, and then a longer instrumental break that just it sounds like evil Elfman.
Yeah.
He leans into Elfman on this one, wonderfully tense and dissonant. On to track 17, Last Post. Picks right up on the last track. I wasn't bored with this one. It's another instrumental interlude. I like it when he doesn't sing. When it's
Really?
just the quartet doing their thing. I've liked all the interludes.
I am just the opposite. I could have really lived without those
Okay.
three. In fact, by this one, it was like, in case there's anyone still awake,
It is a
here's
dirge.
one
It's
more.
slow and moody. Yeah. Nice tension in the low register. On to track 18, The First to Leave. Speaking of low register, I love the lower part of Elvis Costello's voice. He
Oh,
doesn't
of
spend
course.
enough time there.
Right. On this album, he's a lot higher.
Well, but at points when he goes low, it's amazing.
Yeah.
This one feels very old Hollywood. This is where I said it's definitely a drinking album. And
I wish it was.
I think I understand this. She was the first to leave the relationship. She left him, and then he committed suicide, making him the first to leave the earth. I
Oh.
think that's what it was. And there's this long instrumental ending, kind of feels like a tone poem. I enjoyed that. Track
Yeah, it was
9.
nice dramatic finish to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Would have been nice if it was the finish.
Feels like we'd heard the melody like six
Yeah.
times already
Well,
on
we
this
have.
album alone, at least.
Nice ego there, Elvis. On to track 19, Damnation's Cellar. Follows nicely again from the last track there. There's nice transitions here. Very playful, very Beatles again.
I
It's
like this one.
it's a
Reminds me of
pop song.
XTC, actually.
Yeah, you hear XCC Beatles, potato potato.
Yeah, I guess so. But
It's a
almost
pop
is
song with a
quoting
string
majors
quartet.
and generals, you know?
Yeah, it's a pop
almost
song
like
with a string quartet.
Yeah.
Love the line, when any form of deity that you might enjoy can be conjured with a test tube at a flame. I do resent the anti-science implications. He's basically saying we're going to hell because of science. I do like the Da Vinci reference, of course. I'm a huge Da Vinci fan, so I referenced him on the here on Zombie Takeout this week too. Love anything that reminds me of Da Vinci. Finally, track 20. The birds will still be singing.
Feels like this record will still be playing.
Well, I do like the moody cello opening. Again, it's a slow ballad. Again. Nice pretty melody. I like the returning motif. Instrumental break was good. I needed to hear guitar, bass, and drums after this album. So, do you recommend it?
It's very strange. The musicianship is excellent. The singing is great. The songs probably on their own are pretty good, but when you stack them up end on end like this,
Yeah.
it's an exercise in stamina. So no, I would
You
not
don't
recommend
recommend it?
this one. No.
I recommend it. Yeah, it's long. It's too long. But it's when it's good, it's brilliant. Just stop it when you get bored.
Right. If he had, like I said, if they had just honed in 40 minutes worth or 45 minutes worth,
Hmm.
they would have had an album. I was thinking about this. He did this like in the middle of grunge,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people love to enjoy saying that grunge came along and killed this and killed that. And I was like, no, 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 no. It's what was being produced in music was killing music. It
No
was not
genre of
grunge.
music is killed by another genre of music.
Right. This is the equivalent of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer doing like Love Beach in the middle of like the punk movement.
Right,
I
right.
mean, at first I thought, well, this is kind of ballsy. You're just going to go and do a quartet while people are listening to like this rock music, raw rock music. But then it's kind of like, this is just self-indulgence, though, in the end.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you didn't really have that much of a point here, it felt like.
And I have to admit, I'm gloating a bit to hear the prog head call an album self-indulgent.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of people who don't like prog like Elvis Costello and are all like, I wouldn't listen to that prog music. It's so,
Uh,
self-indulgent. It's like, but look what he did here.
oh, yeah, but super self-indulgent. Yeah.
And he was taking a lot of stuff from Prague here,
Hmm.
and sneaking it in and just
This is a
doing it with,
prog album. This is a
yeah, it
straight
is
up fucking prog album.
very much so, but it's not a good prog album.
Um, or if you have it on in the background, I think it's worth listening to. But getting back
Yes,
to my point about music, genres not killing each other.
exactly, though.
Radio and record companies kill genres because when something is popular, they ram it into the fucking ground.
And they dilute the talent,
And they dilute the shit out of it. What they always say grunge killed is hair metal. You know, hair
What
metal was
killed
king in
hair
the
metal?
late 80s. Grunge came along. They say it killed it. No, hair metal killed hair metal.
Right. White Lion killed hair metal.
Not even White Lion. Firehouse, Trickster. They
Oh,
fucking killed
yes.
hair metal.
Yes, they killed hair metal, not Nirvana or Pearl
You know,
Jam.
hair metal being watered down past where it was already watered down. Hair metal, and I grew up on hair metal. I love hair
Yeah,
metal still. But hair metal was watered down to begin with.
true. I mean, Bon Jovi was just, they dressed up like Metallica, but played Wham,
You go
I
back
mean,
to 85 to, the origins of hair metal. It was pop and metal. It was glam. It was glam, basically.
yeah.
It was a, it was a Dayglow glam. It was watered down glam, come to think of it. It was it was metal bands trying to get girls, so they watered down their sound. And then the 90s came along and it got even more watered down. And the same fucking thing happened with grunge. You know,
Yeah.
you
Well,
have your Nirvana and your
that crashed and burned so much faster.
faster, but you have your Nirvana and your, Smashing Pumpkins, Pixies when it was good. And then you get fucking Gin Blossoms.
I mean, Gin Blossoms actually came before some of them. I mean,
I mean, I don't want to throw Matchbox 20 in because they were kind of a post grunge thing.
yeah.
They were when grunge just became comically bad, when it was a parody of itself. But I'm trying to think of like an intermediate step. I think Gin Blossoms were kind of an intermediate step where they were kind of sold like that. I kind of like them, but better than Ezra.
I mean, you like them better than Ezra?
No,
No,
I kind of like better than Ezra, but
you know,
better than Ezra was another one of those kind of watered down grunge ish things. There were a lot of just straight up rock bands who were sold as grunge who kind of didn't get it.
grunge was a misnomer from the start, though, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, and this brings it back to what the album we were talking about, Jeremy had cellos on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this whole thing of that we just stripped everything down and it was just going to be basic. That they never intended to do that
No, no.
themselves. It was just a marketing thing
And
in the
okay,
end.
look at the big five: Nirvana,
Yeah,
Pearl Jam, um, Smashing Pumpkins, Soundgarden, AIC.
Yeah.
What is the fucking common thread aside from possibly Seattle?
And the Pumpkins weren't even Seattle.
Okay, yeah. There is nothing musically joining any of them.
No. Alice was a metal band.
Alice is a metal band. Soundgarden, as much as they hate to admit it, were a metal band.
Yeah, they were. They were. I mean, I remember Louder Than Love was out. I heard about them in high school,
Yeah.
before, you
hmm
know,
Um,
Rusty
Pumpkins
Cage,
were basically
Bad
shoegazer.
Motor. Yeah, they were very much in the same line as REM in the beginning,
Yeah,
and then they became a prog rock
yeah.
band.
Billy Corrigan got a little arrogant in a good way in his case, and it was self-indulgent, but it worked.
Well, he had other influences. He had Yes,
Yeah.
and
I mean, if you can find it, I found it in his file sharing days. He does a great acoustic cover of Limelight by Rush. It's
hmm.
it's just Billy Corrigan and an acoustic guitar playing Limelight. Brilliant.
He does. They also do a great cover of Depeche Mode's "Never Let Me Down Again"
Oh,
like that too.
nice.
That's a really good cover.
And then you have Nirvana. Oh, Pearl Jam. Sorry, let's go to Pearl Jam first. Who were a folk band basically. They started off wanting to be Zeppelin, and then they brought Vedder in, and they went folk.
Yeah.
And then Nirvana, who were just the Pixies light.
I think Pearl Jam, a lot of it, it was kind of like whatever tickled their fancy,
Oh,
They're even doing that to this day.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've listened to the latest one a couple
I kind
times,
of like the latest one.
and there's like a Talking Heads song on it, pretty much.
It's
I
kind of
can't
heavy.
remember which one it
I
is.
like the new one. It's not a folk album. The weird thing is I blame Vedder for the folk, but I like his solo stuff.
Yeah,
Anyway, Nirvana again. Second rate Pixies.
yeah.
Um,
Let's be honest.
just had to hammer that again.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think with Nirvana, and we're tangenting huge here.
Yeah,
The first
but
album,
it is of this time, though. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that is what we're drawing about here.
10 was I'm blanking on the name, the previous band, Andrew Wood.
Mother Love Bone.
10 was a Mother Love Bone album
Very similar.
that they just brought Vedder in to sing on.
Well, Vedder wrote most of the lyrics, I
Yeah,
think.
but the musically, it was it was meant to be a Mother Love Bone album.
Yeah.
That's why it's so much heavier and more intense because Mother Love Bone were a hard rock band.
Although I don't know if there were some of them that were deciding whether they actually wanted to carry on after Wood's
Yeah,
death.
yeah.
There were some of them that were one moved back in with his parents.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
and was
that's
just
the normal
ready to
thing.
like he was just like, I'm done with this. I
But
don't know. I don't want to see anybody else die.
yeah, Ahmed Gossard and was McCready part of that too? Was he
Yeah.
Mother Love Bone? All three of them. Yeah, they carried
You know
on,
what? I'm
and
not sure. I'm not sure if McCready was.
I'm
now that
not.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm not sure
it.
about him. I know Gossard
I know
and Ahmed were.
Amen
Amen.
and Gossard
Yeah, were
were.
Mother Love Bone. They wrote another. They wrote another Mother Love Bone album because obviously they didn't know he was going to die, and they still had all those songs to record, and they just brought in the new singer to record those songs, and then by verses, Vedder was writing, and he's a folkie.
Well, Versus is very much a rock album too.
It goes very folky.
Versus is very similar to actually 210. It's not until Vitology comes out they start getting weird, which is welcome.
But it's Vedder with an acoustic guitar telling stories. That's verses to me, and that's where they went folky. And I'm not criticizing if
I think
they're
you just
good
have
at it.
you got Daughter and Elderly Woman, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's mostly rock.
Well, okay, maybe those are the singles, so maybe I don't have quite the right view of it because I mostly know the singles.
And a lot of them are rock songs that are very similar to the rock songs of 10, which
Okay,
is
I
kind
have
of
to
why
go give it another
I've never
listen then.
really liked Versus all that much because it was kind of like a
It's 10 too. So I don't like the folky stuff, but anyway. Until 2 weeks from now, we're taking next week off because I overextended myself last
I was
month
gonna
and I
say,
need a week off.
you're not gonna make me come back on my own, are you?
No. Only I do that because I'm the guy who records everything.
I have to find it away here.
I need a week off after last month. Until 2 weeks from now, when we'll be reviewing. Say again?
What would I do if I were? What album would I review if I were reviewing an album on my own?
That's a good question. That would be interesting. But let's not talk about the double solo thing. We already did that. Um,
I was just thinking the world of wine.
yeah, we
Terrible.
Tuesday afternoon era. We did a double solo album, a tribute to Outlast. We both did our own episodes. It got weird,
I mean, I wrote intentionally bad skit
and
to do
you
on my
wrote
own.
intentionally bad. I was doing like six voices.
And then I did like some really weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, until 2 weeks from now, when we'll be reviewing Misplaced Childhood by Marillion, getting into some actual prog.
Yeah.
Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.